the audience. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Hello, my name is Lisa Levy, and I'm going to tell you about the city of Detroit. I'm going to tell you about Detroit's start, the first half of the 20th century, and the rise of the auto industry, the second half of the 20th century, and the start of Detroit's decline, and Detroit in the 21st century. So I was born in the suburb of Detroit and moved from Michigan to Las Vegas when I was 10 years old. I've been back at least a dozen times to visit family to the Detroit area, and I became fascinated with the city of Detroit when I watched a TV show about it. And Detroit has a long history. It's been a city for more than 200 years. So according to encyclopedia.com, Detroit was founded in 1701 as a fort and a settlement. It's a French name meaning strait, which is for the narrow river of Lake St. Clair that connects to Lake Erie. It was incorporated as a village in 1802 and gained city status in 1815. The city is fashioned after a European city and Washington, D.C., and it's called a hub and spoke street design. So this is the hub, and then it has spokes that go out. At the start of the 20th century, Detroit became the auto capital of the world, and during World War II, factories converted to war production. So the first half of the 20th century and start of the auto industry, in 1901, Detroit is the 13th largest city in the United States. And I have a chart about the population over time. So in 1900, it was about 300,000. It was a prime location, according to Tom Segur's article that he wrote. It was a prime location located near railroads and waterways. It was able to receive the raw materials used to make a car and deliver the finished automobiles to market. And it had a trained workforce, and Henry Ford was the most famous owner of the car industry and took full advantage of the workers. Detroit had the greatest concentration of automobile manufacturing in the world, and it was the headquarters of the largest manufacturers, being Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors for years. And it was also one of the most unionized cities with the United Auto Workers. At that time, in about the 1920s, there was an influx of black workers, which created severe racial tensions, and then basically there became a black Detroit and a white Detroit, and it was very segregated. World War II, there was an almost 14% population growth. So 1940s on the map is about right here. It went up. And the war production, they stopped making cars and they switched to making tanks, military trucks, and weapons. There was Detroit race riots in 1943. 34 people were killed, and the federal troops had to be called in to restore order. And in 1967, there was 43 people killed and about $45 million in property damage done, and that time the National Guard and U.S. Army had to be called in to restore the order. Between 1945 and 1957, the three auto companies built 25 new plants in metropolitan Detroit, but that's outside the city limits. So that was the start of the decline. 1950 had the largest population growth, and it started to decline from there. In 1950, it was the fourth largest city and the peak of the population, and then it declined as the city auto plants moved to the suburbs, then to other states, and then to other countries. The second half of the 20th century was the start to the decline, and the show that I became interested in learning more about Detroit was called Life After People, and the episode was The Road to Nowhere, which originally aired June 16th, 2009. It talked about Detroit's area. The city of Detroit is actually 143 square miles, and there is 60 square miles that have been abandoned. And the building they talked about was the Packard plant, which operated from 1903 to 1958. 58 years later, they just abandoned it. So you can tell, like, this building used to be there, it's not. This building is crumbling in spots, and then some of them don't look too bad, and then some of them are crumbling to the ground. And Detroit's decline has lasted more than 50 years, but before the city would start to rise, then they had more bad news. At the start of the 21st century, the headline in USA Today dated December 3rd, 2013 read, "Detroit becomes largest city to enter bankruptcy." But in 2015, Redcode.net wrote 7 articles about the comeback of Detroit, and the 7th article was Startups Sparking Change in Detroit. And out of the 15 that are in the Detroit area, 7 are actually located in the city. The other 8 are located in suburbs outside of Detroit. Quicken Loans is now located in Detroit, and there's many small businesses such as Ash Supply Company owned by Aaron Nichols. And Detroit has now turned to urban farming, and there's a website, greeningofdetroit.com, and their goals are to repurpose the land and provide green strategies for vacant lots and provide job training for green jobs. And Vegas is the opposite of Detroit, whereas here they implode a building that is 40 years old to build another hotel and casino in its spot. Detroit buildings are just abandoned, both commercials and homes. And the summer of 2012, I toured around the state of Michigan, and I spent time in Detroit, and I took pictures of family history houses where my great-grandparents lived and owned houses, and where my grandparents owned houses. And one of the houses was lost in the 1967 riots, but my great-grandparents didn't own the house at the time. And took pictures of the Michigan Central Depot Station. So this is the land where one of my relatives' houses used to be. This is one of the houses where my great-grandparents owned and my grandfather grew up in. And this, I believe, was a school that was abandoned. And they have buildings that are burned down, or houses that are burned down, and they basically just leave them. Let's see. Oh, and I took pictures of the Michigan Central Depot, but I couldn't find pictures, so I pulled it up off the internet, which also shows the hub. This is the hub, and the spokes are going out from there for the main city streets. And Detroit's mottos are, "We hope for better things, and it will arise from the ashes." So hopefully it gets on its feet economically. And next time I go to Michigan, I plan to go to a Tigers game at Comerica Park and do some downtown shopping, visit the aquarium on Belle Isle, and take a tour of abandoned buildings. It's both sad and really cool to see. Thank you.